The next part of our debate is a question from Mr. Whalen. Yep, no, we're done with that part. Now it's time for your question. Now it's time for Mr. Whalen's question of Mr. Braley.
Mr. Braley, you wrote that you supported the idea when McDonald's got sued. That you wrote, I think, in a public editorial that when they got a few $1 million awarded in damages against them, that was a great benefit to society, which obviously indicates a much different opinion about how we move society ahead. Will you explain to us why you thought the decision in McDonald's thing was a great benefit to society?
Well, Mike, you spent a lot of time trying to make the case that I'm anti-business, and maybe you can explain why your campaign manager, Russ Parasho, who's a trial lawyer from Seattle, is included in this book, Chambers USA, America's Leading Lawyers for Business, and why my name is also included in this book if I'm so anti-business. In fact, the ratings of that book are made by business owners who have clients, and they rate the lawyers around the country. And obviously, you made a good choice in hiring Russ as your campaign manager. But the facts are the facts. I wrote a guest opinion piece for the Des Moines Register because they were publishing false information about alleged outrageous damage awards around the country. And I wrote a guest opinion piece because I knew they were using false information. And my piece challenged the editorial writer from the Des Moines Register, Bill Leonard, to withdraw the statements he was making because it was based on fictitious cases. And you know what the rest of the story is, Mike? 2 days later, Bill Leonard did just that and wrote that he would never, ever accept information from this so-called business tort reform group because they were unable to provide any validation for the facts that they provided him, and they all proved to be false. Look, I've been fighting for 23 years to stand up for people who don't have a voice for themselves. Mike has been putting on misleading TV commercials calling me a greedy trial lawyer. The one case he used was a case where I represented a woman and didn't charge her a fee so that she could return to her workplace, not go on Social Security disability, and make every one of you in this room have a higher tax burden. If that makes me a greedy trial lawyer, Mike, then I'm willing to continue to stand up and fight just the way I have all my life when I go out to Congress to give people in this district a voice who aren't being heard right now. And that's who I am. That's what you're going to get if you vote for Bruce Braley.
Mr. Whalen, reply?
Well, we didn't hear any reason why we thought that the decision was a great benefit to society. We kind of ignored the whole question. The fact is that, you know, I understand about those books, and I think that I haven't practiced law ever in my life, although I passed the bar, and I still get solicitations to have my name put in there. All it costs is a couple $100 sometimes. And I write back, sometimes I write back and say, I'm sorry, I'm not even a practicing lawyer. So I'm not sure about that book. But I do know this, that litigation is something that drives jobs overseas, that causes doctors, to change the way they practice medicine. Stuart Weinstein, 37 years, I think, at the University of Iowa Hospital, Dr. Weinstein, he heads up this effort. You know what he said? He said young doctors come out of school not looking at patients sometimes as people to heal, but as potential litigants. That's an environment we need to change.
Thank you. For our final question, before closing statements, we're going to ask a question about your own ideology and what kind of congressman you would be. Bruce Braley, you brought in Joe Biden, Evan Bayh, Barack Obama to support your campaign and to raise money. Mike Whalen, you brought in Laura Bush, Dick Cheney, Karl Rove, and John McCain as fundraisers for your campaign. Tell us where each of you agree and disagree with those members of your own party who have come here to support your candidacies. Mr. Braley.
Well, one of the reasons that I disagree with some of them is because they didn't raise near as much money for me as those other folks raised for mine. But you know, that's just the way it is when you're a Democratic candidate out there working to get by every day. It's a difficult question to ask, Mark, because it's a difficult question to answer because each of these candidates that you've identified are people I have tremendous respect for. And a lot of them have carved out areas of expertise. Joe Biden in the area of foreign policy. Barack Obama in the area of community services and getting resources to people in community situations. Evan Bayh in standing up and being a visible, accountable presence on issues of national security. So for you to ask the question without giving us a full-scale overview of the issues that they have gone on record on is very difficult to respond to. I think that the main area of disagreement I might have with some of them is the ones who believe that we still need to stay the course in Iraq. Because I truly believe, with a brother who works at the VA hospital in Knoxville, Iowa, taking care of wounded Iraqi veterans, that staying the course is another way of saying stay forever. And that's why I will work with people like Congressman Jim Leach to make sure that Congress lives up to the mandate it set out in that National Defense Budget Act of making this year a year of transition to the Iraqi security forces and starting to redeploy our troops to areas where they're needed. And I'm going to stand up and be strong on national security. I will, and if they haven't done this already, one of my first acts will be to support the adoption of every one of the 9/11 Commission's recommendations for which we have been getting failing grades. National security is an issue of utmost importance. As your member of Congress, I will work hard to make that happen.
Mr. Whalen.
Well, you know, when somebody offers to come to Iowa and say, you'd like to come? I guess as somebody who's been in the restaurant business, I've always invited pretty much anybody in my front door, and I'm proud that some folks have come out to help me. I'm not sure where I have policy agreements or disagreements with Laura Bush. I didn't really get into that. And neither did I really have that kind of discussion with Mr. Rove. But I will say this, and you forgot to mention Speaker Hastert and some other folks that came out for me, Mr. Romney. You know, one of the things that I want to do is take advantage of being an Iowan with the fact that they'll all come to Iowa. Because when I go out as a congressman, the first term congressman, I don't want to go out as a freshman congressman. I want to go out as somebody that knows the vice president and the president and his wife by the first name, the Speaker of the House and everybody else. Because I don't want to hit the ground running. And so when those folks have come out to ask, would you like to come out to Iowa, I say sure. Because I'd like to get to know you, because when I go to Washington in January, I'm going to sit down and talk to you about the needs of the 1st District. And I'm glad I have that opportunity.